Welcome to Rauta 5. This time the theme is Aesthetic Death Records, which is a very interesting record label dealing with, that is, extreme metal, but also way beyond that, including but not limited to dark ambient, dark wave, even some kind of electronic pop music, or something that could be considered some kind of a crossover style. Now, be it as it may, 5 releases, and these are all, mind you, quite old releases. I think the newest ones are as new as 2017, but then there are a lot older stuff as well. Once again, going through in alphabetical order, giving you a brief description of each and every band and album, and then you will have links provided in case you're interested in music. Now, a word of warning for you pure metalheads out there, most of these have very little to do with metal music as such, so in case you're not ready to venture beyond the borders of metal music, well, time to move on and come back with a later review. Anyway, we'll start with the project called Accurst with Messenger of Shadow. This is a project that started way more than 10 years ago, and it's supposed to be a trilogy of albums, and this is supposed to be the last one of those 3 albums. Whereas the previous ones have gone different styles, they're not as the same style, you know. This one is dark ambient of sorts, kind of a nightmarish with hissing and buzzing sounds, and some of sources which cannot really be identified just by listening to music, which is often the case with, you know, metal music or rock music. You can just say, this is the guitar, this is bass, you know the drill. This is something way beyond that. So lots of probably synthesizer used recordings, but also way beyond that, like sources that could be maybe gone through a lot of effects in order to create this nightmarish album full of interesting sounds. Now, I just happen to love dark ambient as a genre, and the best of those albums are, in my books, way better than most metal albums out there. Of course, there are also poorer ones, and this falls right in the middle. Not the best of the genre, not the worst. Actually pretty cool all in all, being very minimal in sound, but also kind of a nightmarish in the terms of being very dark, but also having these noises which are kind of meant to create this oppressing feeling, a little bit like sinister feeling, but there is something that in my books is like missing. Like it could be even further taken to the direction of darkness and grimness as opposed to what it is. But it's interesting release. The previous one I heard from the band many years ago was different style and not as good as that, so this might be very well the best of this whole trilogy. Definitely worth giving a shot in case you just happen to like dark ambient and the like. Then we have this split album by Dust to Dearth / Lysergene called The Death of the Sun. This is some 70 minutes of music with 8 tracks, so quite lengthy tracks overall. These 2 projects are from different places, done by different people. Don't know really the backgrounds of the artists, and maybe that is something that you will dig out in case you're interested. Now, Dust to Dirt is definitely more on the, I would say, experimental, dronier, dark wave, even industrial side of things. That is, the music is using not only vocals, but also kind of martial industrial rhythms and patterns, which are not exactly dark ambient, but not your typical martial industrial either. So there's different kind of ideas put back and forth, including, but not always, having those female vocals. Sometimes they're more like spoken parts, sometimes it's more like closer to singing, and that alone creates this whole mess of things. Now, some tracks or parts of songs are clearly better than the rest, so it's a little bit like an off-balanced thing. I would say the best parts are really like, yeah, likable, whereas the most boring parts are more like skippable. Now, the later part of the album, the 3 last tracks by Lysergene, is definitely, in my opinion, the better half of the album, and that is very minimal, very dark, ambient, the kind of stuff that I like. I would say definitely closer to styles of acts such as Innate and Lustmord, but not limited to those either. Definitely very, very good side that is. So I would say a little bit off-balanced split, but interesting nonetheless. Then we have this French project Haiku Funeral with an album called Hallucinations. This is a little bit weird case because it's not clearly genres that I'm too familiar with. Can't really compare this to most albums in the world I've been listening to, but some would say this is a little bit like experimental, dark, rock pop, kind of a post-metallic, post-rockish kind of a thing in a way. A combination of sorts which I really can't put my finger on too much. And as such, the result is kind of a, I don't know, confusing. Because this is the kind of a music that is kind of a hard, for me anyway, to describe and fully box into any given genre. But there are parts which kind of makes this album somewhat interesting, even if not that fascinating or good. One could say this is kind of a special music for people with special, well, music taste. I'm not going to say special needs, that would be just kind of a negative and all that stuff. An interesting case, but in my opinion, lacks the ability to make these songs good and all that stuff. So this is more like just kind of a weird and even maybe on the annoying side rather than catchy and good. I don't know. Give it a shot if you think you're looking for something else, something really different rather than the styles you know, and then Haiku Funeral might be your cup of tea, but can't really recommend because this is not the kind of stuff that I want to say, yeah, I understand it and I like it and all that stuff. It's, I mean, in my opinion, kind of a weird salad. Maybe you'll like it, most likely not. Then we have this Australian one-man project called Mekigah with Autexousious. Autexousious. I don't know how to pronounce it. Let's be honest with it. And this was labeled as Doom Gothic Metal Band on Metal Archives, which I think don't really describe the fourth album by this band. Because the thing here is, there is very, very little to do with metal anymore. It's kind of electronic experimental music with slow tempo and all. And the slow tempo might be the only thing that is connecting the dots with doom metal, but I wouldn't call this metal at all. It's more like experimental electronic music with a little bit of a reminiscent of metal parts, and that metal part is that certainly there are some riffs, if you can just spot them among this electric haziness, and that tempo alone like takes the doom part, and there's vocal parts which are a lot of effects with, and they're a little bit more kind of towards black metal in that kind of shriekier aspects. But most of the album is, in my opinion, it's like made of various ideas, which are not so much constituting the album with, you know, riffs and patterns and melodies and all that stuff, but like various ideas put together and like, let's consider this a song, put it aside, move on, then later on compile all these songs to an album. Like if you are, once again, much like Haiku Funeral, if you're into very special kind of unique kind of music and you want something different, this is definitely right up your alley. But then again, if you want music that is approachable, listenable, enjoying melodies, vocal parts, all that stuff, maybe go into some other parts. I would say this sounds, in theoretically speaking, this sounds more interesting than what it actually is. But I don't know, it's people get their kicks out of different ideas. The last and also the least is Sect 37 with Legion or Legio Mihi Nomen Est, but Legion seems to be the album, and this is some 60 minutes of very, very experimental pop music meeting dark wave meeting, I don't know how to describe it, a little bit of industrial ideas, like poor man's version of, I don't know, Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that, with Depeche Mode parts, with a British accent and all that stuff, singing these songs. Well, singing might be a little exaggerated because the vocals are actually really, not really bad, but quite bad. I mean, sometimes it's more closer to what you would refer as singing, and sometimes it's more like trying to sing. This is so electronic and affected album that it's almost like feels like stupid. Now I remember writing that I was going through my archives that I actually reviewed this in the past for like 2.5 out of 10. So this is a bad album for real, and I really can't recommend this to anybody. I mean, I like Nine Inch Nails to a certain degree. I definitely like Depeche Mode quite a bit, and even though I can find similarities with those names and that, this is something that I cannot enjoy. Now I wouldn't be as harsh to give that score nowadays. Maybe this isn't that bad, but not a good one either. So definitely one of the most boring albums I've heard the entire year. But decided to include it nevertheless because it was once again in my review pile. And even though I did the written review for that album many years ago, this kind of deserved another go because it hasn't been featured on Rauta previously. So all these 5 albums, are any of them worth listening to? I would say a couple of them, yeah, for sure. Accurst being quite cool, Dark Ambient one, and Dusty Dearth / Lysergene split because of the Lysergene part there, the later part of the split album. This is really good, and Dusty Dearth is definitely worth giving a shot as well. So not so metallic, but very different, very kind of unique selection of albums in so many ways. Now, Aesthetic Death is once again an interesting label, but it's a lot of misses, even though it also includes hits. Take a look at their web store in case you want to look for something else that you're usually listening to. And if you find any of these albums worth taking a look, you will find that those available in the label's web store, or unless they're sold out, that is. Anyway, give those links a look and listen, and I hope you like some of them. Take care and happy holidays.